This is a negotiation between agents for a community opera company and a singer. The opera's new production is due to open in 3 weeks, and the lead singer has suddenly withdrawn from the role. The opera has contacted Sally, a veteran soprano who has performed the role for the opera before, about taking it on.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Tim.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I understand that you represent Sally. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Is Sally available during the time period?
Yes, she is.
Does she have any other commitments during that period?
Not during that time period. No, she doesn't.
The sense is that among some people that she may not quite have the skills that she used to have.
Well, I'd like to give you some assurances on that point. Because of her familiarity with this part, she's a perfect fit. And in fact, she feels that she's probably better for this role now than she was when she was a bit younger.
Why?
She feels that the role calls for a more mature operatic voice as well as actress, and that she can fit that bill even better than she could when she performed it quite a few years ago.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what it is that she would be looking for in terms of compensation for serving in this lead role?
Yes, I can explain to you, I can give you a number and explain to you how we get there, which I think is the more important part.
Okay.
Sally would be looking for approximately $40,000 for this role. And that's based upon what she had been paid previously when she performed this part, and how the market has changed since that time. And in fact, from our analysis of her position, we believe that female operatic singers over the past couple of years, their price and salary has almost doubled.
Well, why don't I start off by saying it's certainly substantially more. The $40,000 is substantially more than what we had in mind, and is well beyond what I've been authorized by my board to offer. What we were really thinking is something along the range of $25,000. And we arrived at that given her stature in the community, the artistic community today, what our budget is, the fact that she has only 3 weeks to prepare, and normally there is a longer lead-in and preparation time, so there's less work involved for her.
When you say budgetary concerns, can you be a little more specific?
Well, our concern is that we need, again, to put bodies in the seats, and if we hit 80% capacity, we're going to lose $50,000. And if Ms. Soprano were the type of draw that she were 4 years ago, we would have a better sense that we would exceed that 80% range.
And how confident are you that the understudy would be able to achieve an 80% attendance?
It's not so much the 80% attendance that we're concerned with on the understudy, it's how many bodies we can put in the seats versus what we would pay her in a salary. And although I don't have it in my notes here, my sense is that we would probably pay the understudy on the range of $20,000 to $25,000.
As I see it, if your current number is $25,000 and I've put $40,000, I feel like somewhere along the line we can hopefully reach some agreement. So maybe we should just try now to move closer together on that point.
I think that's a fair proposition.
Well, you asked me if there was any flexibility in the $40,000 number. Is there any flexibility in the $25,000 number?
Yes, there is. We agreed to pay Ms. Rising Star $28,000 for this role. I've indicated that I'm prepared to pay $28,000 and that I have the authority to do that. I think in a fair negotiation like the one I think we've had to this point, it's up to you to give me a sense of what your reaction to that is.
Well, my reaction, I'm very happy to hear that you're willing to come up from the $25,000. I've heard everything you've had to say in your comparisons of Ms. Rising Star and Ms. Soprano, though I don't completely agree with them. I think that there is some merit to them. And we would be willing to come off of the $40,000 position, but I would tell you that we are really looking for nothing lower than somewhere in the mid-30s. Given the positions that we've set out, we are not too far apart in trying to reach some closure on this. And I'm wondering if there's any flexibility in the $28,000 position.
There is. I think, though, with certain conditions attached other than just a straight bump in salary, I think that Ms. Soprano should bear some risk in this venture. Your position has been Ms. Soprano can help you put bodies into the seats. If Ms. Soprano cannot help us put bodies into the seats, then she should not be paid a premium as though she could have. We're prepared to go north of $28,000 on the condition that we do so with a performance incentive.
And what are you thinking in terms of?
I would be thinking in terms of having targets in terms of percentage of seats sold. I believe your last offer was 36.5, is that correct?
Correct.
That's outside of my authority, but if we could agree on some lower number, then we could hold that portion above $28,000 that we've agreed to in an escrow account. And in the event that we hit our performance benchmarks with the help of Ms. Soprano, then we're prepared to pay her that escrowed amount.
And what is the base amount she would be paid in this scenario, regardless of the number of seats that are filled?
$28,000.
And then between $28,000 and some number that we would negotiate, the rest would be held in escrow and be paid out. All right, so if I can summarize where we are right now.
Certainly.
I would say that we have agreed that there will be some set amount of compensation.
We've already agreed that it will be $28,000.
No, I don't think we've agreed it will be $28,000. I think that's the number that you threw out.
Okay.
But we will agree it will be some number. And then we've agreed that between the minimum, we'll call it the minimum level.
Okay.
Between the minimum level and the escrow amount, there will be some amount that's going to be kept in escrow, and that will be based on Ms. Soprano's performance.
Okay.
In part, and I've agreed to that concept, but also included within that, you have agreed in principle to at least include some provisions to protect my client from any failures on behalf of Lyric Opera that may be responsible for not filling the house, so to speak.
My understanding was that we had an agreement at $28,000, but I understand that you don't agree with that.
I guess the minimum amount depends on how much we agree to keep in escrow.
I still think that $28,000 is a fair offer without regard to or without respect to any additional bonus compensation. And I believe that we could, in all likelihood, put on a financially successful or at least break-even show at that number. I'm not prepared to pay a substantial bonus over and above that amount. When you asked me originally whether I was prepared to go north of that amount, that's when I raised the idea of this bonus.
Understood.
I need to know what your cap is. I have thrown out 36.5, and I need to know what your number is.
If we put in the structure that we've just outlined, where are you willing to go?
I'm prepared to go with a bonus, so total compensation paid to your client of $32,500. And that's assuming that's with the bonus at attendance in excess of 85%.
Are all the other roles already filled in the
Yes.
opera?
They are.
And is 32.5, I've thrown out 36.5 again, we seem to be closing the gap between us. Is 32.5, is that what your authority is here today? Is there any flexibility in that number whatsoever?
I don't have any flexibility in that number.
Well, certainly my client would prefer, given the numbers that you've laid out, to accept 32.5 as the bottom line compensation without any tie-in to attendance. Are you amenable to that at all?
No, we're not prepared to do that because we're not prepared to take a loss on this show.
If you would be willing to give us a base compensation of $29.5 and a cap on the escrow of $34.5, we would be willing to make the deal with you. And again, the $29.5 would be based on Ms. Soprano having more of a household name, and the additional, the escrow is in recognition of the risks that she's willing to take here because she thinks she should be more highly valued and that you will be benefit by having her in your performance.
If she's prepared to do a cap of 34 and 29,000 base, you have a deal.
We will make the deal on that basis.
Very
We
good.
can work out the details. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.